washing the dishes as he scrubbed on the plates, cups and more in silence, with a blank stare and without a single thought in mind, as he did his duty of cleaning the kitchen, ever since he started cooking for his masters. She has assigned him to become part of the chef team due to his capabilities. Yet another job to do around this realm of the demon lord, though as he scrubbed in silence, he couldn't help but pause a few moments. His eyes stared at the wet plate. Archer, to my sister and her knights, you will be an unknown enigma. They won't know how to counter you at first. That can help us. Your projection will be useful for sure. The infinite mana source from me will allow you to go all out. He sweats as he turns his hand into a fist. This is the worst. This is the fucking worst. He placed the dish down with the rest of the wet ones as they dried, sighing heavily as he slumps down and has his arms resting over the sink. None of this is fair. He thought he'd free himself from all that. A pitiful and dry chuckle came out of him as he looked up at the ceiling. This life truly is full of hypocrisy. Swoosh! He stared dully at the dagger in his hand that he formed. This dagger contains a high power, not because of its strength, but because of its ability. The dagger is strange to anyone. It would look like an odd dagger of sorts. The dagger can destroy any sorcery, a sword of negation and betrayal. It's able to nullify all kinds of magecraft, a weapon that materializes and embodies the divinity of the famous witch of betrayal, Nidea. His eyes stared at the dagger, squinting a bit as the blade has the power to nullify and destroy every single type of magecraft. If he does so, he won't have to be forced to fight against Saber. He grimaced with a small huff. This is certainly troublesome. He hasn't felt such pain in his heart for eons, decades. Certainly, the feeling of his steel-tin heart that he's hardened throughout his misery slowly hurts as he thinks of her. He dispels Rule Breaker as he continued to pant heavily. No, this isn't his Saber. Nor is this the same one he knew about. They may have similar ideals, possibly or even still act the same, but both are different since one knows? No knew him and the other doesn't. But still, even if he tells himself that, he knows deep down he's lying. He's all too familiar with himself. The past is the past. You cannot change it, no matter what. He slowly got up. He failed to save her. He cannot go on ahead and try and replace that guilt by feeling a sort of way towards this version, even if it hurts like hell. He had loved her once, he cannot love another, for they are not her, not his version that knew of him. He has no right to ever love her, but he does respect her, because she showed him light on the path of darkness he would walk. You wish to what, your highness? The witch stares at the demon lord as she kneels beneath her, looking up with awe at the request given to her. I wish for you to use your magic to show me what the deepest desire of my familiar is. If I may ask, your highness, said the witch, why is it that you wish for me to show you the deepest desire of his? Very good question indeed, sorceress. Morgan bummed, crossing one leg over her other as she relaxes on her throne. 1, it's to get to know my familiar more. 2, just to see what he desires the most. And 3rd, reward him after we win the tournament as a gift for his help. Morgan said, I see. The witch said, surprised at Morgan's reasoning. Truly, you're such a wondering person, your highness. So how does viewing into one's hidden desires and so forth work? Morgan asked as she stared at the witch, who held a hidden crystal ball in her hand. First, we need a piece of DNA of your familiar, the witch said. What kind of DNA will you need? There are multiple things that can be used. Blood, sweat, hair, bodily fluids in general, so long as we can get a hand of his DNA. I see. Hold on a minute. Morgan opened a portal of the size that wasn't too big nor too small, putting her hand inside of it as she then moved her hand out with something. Oh, ow. What the... Archer was gripped by the hair with a closed eye expression. Shocked to say, as he was cleaning, then found a portal appear beside him. Then the hand of his master gripped his head and dragged his head through the portal. What are you doing? Archer asked. Apologies for the sudden disruption, familiar. But I need a bit of your DNA, Morgan said as she ignored the man's struggling expression, as she then pulled a few hair strings out of his head. It is done. Thank you for your time." With that, she gently moved Archer's head back through the portal and then slowly pulled her hand out, the portal closing in the process. "It is done. I have a few locks of hair. Will this suffice as enough?" Morgan asked. "Yes, that's perfect, Your Highness," the witch said as Morgan placed the strands of hair on the witch's open palm. She then gently let the hair fall into the crystal ball, entering the ball with ease. A faint glow emitted as the color was grey. "What does it mean if the orb is grey?" Morgan asked. You see, when targeting a person that's being used to learn of them, you also get to learn what color their soul is. And what does grey mean? Grey. Silver, the soul of a dull being. No color emits because the soul grew to be that of steel. One that values themselves as none and is broken, values themselves as none and is broken, Morgan whispered as she stared at the color. "What about his desire?" Morgan asked. "His desire?" The witch watched as the crystal ball began forming an image or scenery of sorts. She inspects closely. "Come see yourself," the witch said. Morgan leans forth to inspect the view shown on the crystal ball. The scenery was peaceful, alone on a horizon of green and blue, with beautiful white clouds and the sun that shines the day. There on the land of grass that scattered for what seems forever laid Archer. He seemed unmoving. On the grass he laid, his eyes closed and his face at peace. His breath was calm, and he didn't budge at all, almost as if he's trapped in eternal sleep. But he seems content, as if all worries, burdens, and such pain that he dealt with finally had a reward of sorts. Peace. The witch spoke. Morgan's ears perked up, staring at the witch with surprise. The scenery, the time of day, unmoving and unbothered, as if all worries and all agony has finally ended. His desire, peace, and rest, the witch said. She can only grimace. Her eyes stared at the man who remained unmoved. The soul of his makes sense even more now, and it seems like Morgan knew that as well. And his fears. "Oh, you're quite nosy and invading private space, Your Majesty," the witch said, with a sly grin of sorts. "I just wish to see what he fears, or perhaps what was one of the causes that made him become the way he turned out to be." "I see. So you wish to see the cause of the way he is now?" Very well, then. The witch began using her magic. The crystal ball became blank as it then started showing another scene. A scenery of fire, crackling flames everywhere. It was all but a flash. Wait a minute. Where has she seen those flames before? Morgan then saw a burst of air happen. A blue orb with rings formed around. Then she saw a figure standing kneeling right in front of the orb, watching as strings then attached to the figure. The face was not shown, yet she realized instantly it was Archer. A little girl, hair as white as the snow, eyes that were crimson like blood, laying softly on a futon. A taller figure grasped the girl's hand tightly. All the while you can hear quiet muffling coming from the figure. His face once again remains unknown. Morgan widened her eyes at what the ball showed. "Artoria?" she asked in shock. The witch looked shocked as well as they saw the figure of the king. Morgan recognized those golden locks of hair from anywhere, the figure as well. But what? How? In the crystal ball, she saw as the image of who she perceived to be Artoria lay on the ground. Her face was not shown as she laid in a scenery of nothingness, though she saw her lying there in armor of blue and silver. Her hair was loose out of the bun, she kept it in, flowing around in silence. In the end, I could not save her heart. The rough voice of Archer's was heard. A pale hand that looked young tried to reach Artoria, but alas was too far away, his voice in not being able to reach her, and it looks like it'll never be able to. The crystal ball then went blank, nothing showing up anyone. Morgan remained frozen as the memory of the hand reaching out to her sister struck her. No, there's no way that was her sister, could it? Perhaps that was someone that looked identical to Artoria. In the end, I could not save her heart. She frowned at those words. For some reason they hurt her as well. Could not save her heart. What did he mean by that? But most importantly, the reason her familiar, no Archer, became the person she knows of is because of those events. It seems like whatever tragedy that occurred caused the man to become the way he is today. More questions have opened up, and for now she'll continue to try and learn more about the spirit. all the while preparing for the tournament. Still, though, all of that bugged her. But the most that bugged her was the person there in the memory, was that truly her sister.